Welcome to Asean Biz, your only choice for business updates covering ASEAN countries. I'm Andrew Chia.
And I'm Eric Chong.
And we bring you business news on everything that happens around the world that affects ASEAN countries.
Our direct main story today is property woes in Malaysia. But before that, let's look at our current business updates on the topic of Samsung on fire. Wow,
Hey, Eric.
Andrew, what do you mean by Samsung on fire?
It's the Samsung phone. It actually catches fire while charging.
Let's be precise with our story. So it's actually the Samsung Galaxy Note 7, which is the latest model, I believe, catches fire while charging. And it happens to only an estimated of 0.1% of the products. But these have caused alarming situations, especially in the airports and airline industries.
Yeah, because so far there have been 2.5 million phones sold, Eric. And they need to be replaced. And the value of the recalls is estimated about $1 billion.
Wow, that is astronomical figures. Okay, but
not really big lah. 1 billion to Samsung is small amount.
It's small amount, and it's just one particular model. And this happens when users start to use their phones in the airplane, and it causes a lot of delay in the flights, and this costs money.
So far, Eric, how many of these cases?
But then so far they only found 24 phones are defective.
Oh, 24. Is that a lot or a few?
It's actually very few if you compare to the production margin of defects. So it's really, really very small.
Yeah, but 24 phones is actually, they can make it a big issue.
Yeah,
why not? Not like one or two,
Especially the 24 phones, probably part of them affected the airline. And this happens, and the airline industries are very sensitive to
So
any
is
disruption.
ASEAN affected? I believe only Singapore. They are more advanced countries and they buy a lot of new phones. The other countries in ASEAN are not affected. Probably, is it sold here yet?
I think it's already in the market, right? But they have made some promotions in the market, and probably we have some friends who bought it from Korea.
So here you can't do the recall and replacement.
There's no recall and replacement yet. So far it's only Singapore. And this incidents actually spell good business for iPhones and other competitors.
I think they are laughing now.
They are laughing.
One of our competitors in trouble.
And these incidents actually caused Samsung shares to plunge recently. As if the effect is not bad enough when you see so much of shares have been dropped. The recent hunting incidents. So now comes to this Samsung incidents.
So let's hope our friend Samsung recovers quickly. And for all the Samsung friends out there, you might want to stick back to your previous or existing version first before you upgrade to be stabilized to change into your new phones.
Well, hard to say, Andrew, nowadays people are so into the trend chasing.
Can't wait.
Go
to Singapore to buy.
Yeah, I must be the first one to own the latest model, which causes the iPhone craze and people are so anticipating for the release of iPhone 7. So it's hard to say. People always want to be the first to own something new.
Other ASEAN countries, the replacement might be a bit troublesome, right?
Yes.
Since only Singapore you can replace.
So, I guess users, you just have to hold on to your horses. Don't jump into the market so fast before things stabilize.
Great. Well, that's our short little current business update for today. We'll be back shortly with more interesting updates on ASEAN Biz. Stay tuned, guys. Welcome back, folks. You're listening to ASEAN Biz. Before we bring on our main story for this edition, Eric is going to share with us his funny business moment. And the title of his story today is A Dying Question.
A husband and a wife have 4 boys. The odd part of it is that the older 3 have red hair, light skin, and are tall, while the youngest son has black hair, dark eyes, and is short. The father eventually takes ill and is lying on his deathbed when he turns to his wife and said, "Honey, before I die, be completely honest with me. Is our youngest son my child?" The wife replied, "I swear on everything that's holy that he is your son." With that, the husband passes away. The wife then mutters, Thanks God he didn't ask about the other 3.
What a happy man, Eric. Well, thanks, Eric, for that funny business moment. Guys, you're listening to Asean Biz, your only choice for business updates covering ASEAN countries. I'm your host, Andrew Chia, and together with me is Eric Chong, and we bring you all the business news that involves ASEAN countries.
The title of our Durian main story today is Property Woes in Malaysia. This article is produced by courtesy of SAMFIS, the Center for Financial Intelligence Studies.
Eric, property prices have been falling for the past 2 years, right?
Yes. And the good news for that, there are some good news and there are some bad news for most. Okay, especially
good
for
some people,
good
bad for some people, as they say.
Especially for those so-called property investor and speculators.
Let's do a recap, Eric. What caused the property slowdown?
Okay. Well, some of the causes of property slowdowns are banks slowing down the lending.
Yes, this is one of the factors.
Yes, there's too much of speculation earlier.
Yeah,
that means
talk
the past
about that.
2 years, a lot of speculations.
Where the property actually increased by 100 or 200%.
Yes, it's
within
not
just
even
couple of
the
years.
speculation not only started from the so-called potential investor or buyers, it even started with the developers. You know, developers always claim that their property is much better and start selling at much higher prices. Right? And then crude oil prices affected the international economy, including Malaysia, which means that
business slowdown, right?
business slowdown when the crude oil prices drop. The oil and gas industry is the first one to be affected. As we discussed about our previous episode, we talked about the oil prices and we talked about the oil and gas industries.
So, I think the main cause is the DIBS, which we mentioned earlier in one of our editions, right?
Yes,
The Developer Interest Bearing Scheme. That is the main cause of the slowdown. We'll be covering that after our short break.
Yes.
So, let's move on to the main cause that is really affecting the whole property market besides the DIBS, which is?
The main cause of property slowdown is that our household debts to GDP ratio has reached 100%, an alarming level. And we believe that Bank Negara Malaysia has instructed the bank to slow down on lending to this sector, which includes car loans and credit.
Yeah,
when
we
the
have
bank
done
slowdowns,
this,
then
we have
things
mentioned
actually
this
come
earlier
slow down.
also, right?
Yes, I think the banks also wouldn't like to have too many non-performing loans.
Yeah.
Right.
When it reaches something like 100%, it means that people will not be able to pay back the loans.
Pay back the loans, and the purchasing power of the general public has actually drops. So
Because the salary cannot cover so many items on the
and we
spending
can
list.
actually see that the basic food requirement also price increases. Right? Except maybe clothings. We don't need so much of clothing. Clothings are actually much cheaper nowadays.
Yeah, thanks to China.
Thanks to China. So, but then
Vietnam.
we can't eat clothings. Alright.
So food is still expensive, Eric.
Food is still expensive as compared to our so-called purchasing power.
Yeah, they say compared to Singapore.
Yeah, it's nothing
Singapore
to compare
food
to.
is so cheap.
Yeah, in Singapore, practically you can get a plate of chicken rice for $3.
Yeah, two Singapore dollars.
$2 you also can get it. But
How about Thailand and Indonesia, Eric? Is it cheap, the food there?
if you comparatively, Thailand is not that cheap also. You know, their price of food is quite comparative to Malaysia. Especially you look at their earning capacity. Their purchasing power is much more lower than us.
Yeah, I think I've eaten in Thailand. Is
Yeah.
okay,
Because
almost same as here.
the recent trip I went to Bangkok is actually not cheap. If you look at their fruits, especially their pineapple, you feel that it's cheap, but it's still not cheap even though you pay in the Thai baht.
But it's very sweet.
It's very sweet, especially those are small pineapples. Over here they sell 3 pieces for $10. And over in Thailand is also the same. They sell for 100 baht, 4 pieces. Which almost quite equivalent over here. So which means their purchasing power is not that strong as well.
How about Philippines? Do you know, is it cheap in Philippines to eat? I think it's better, right?
Philippines is much more better because I would say that Philippines, firstly, they have much more farmer markets and much more direct produce that sells direct to the market, which causes it to be much more cheaper. You know?
So the result of us having so much household debt, we actually did one edition where we talk about household debt across the ASEAN countries. We compare all the countries.
Yes.
And it seems like Malaysia and Thailand, if I remember correctly, are very high having household debts.
Household debts, yes. That's why it's simply because that their purchasing power is not that strong. So a lot of people are actually depending on credits to live on. You know, especially when you talk about Malaysia. Youngsters nowadays don't go for $3, $4 meals. They go for $10, $20 meals. You know, every meal will cost them about $20. And couple in with the public transport cost is also quite high. Right? If you talk about our LRT, it's not that cheap at all. Right?
So today we are talking about our Malaysian property market, which maybe could be similar in some way to certain countries around us, maybe like Thailand or Singapore. So what we are happening right now here is the result of property slowdown coupled with low crude oil prices. What is this happening, having an effect on the Malaysian economy?
Well, the related industries to the crude oil prices, such as construction, furniture, restaurants, all will slow down together.
Yeah, nothing much to construct.
Nothing much to construct.
And when people don't move into new houses, they don't
can't
buy
sell.
furniture.
Right? And the contractors won't have enough contract to sustain their infrastructure.
Yes, and when you sell your properties and you make a profit, what you do is you invite all your friends to the restaurant,
To the restaurants or
To have
even
a big
housewarming. Even the
Yeah.
caterers having slowed down in business because
so
less
food
housewarming.
industry.
And recently I have a few friends who actually bought bungalows that intend to move in. So I asked them, hey, when's the housewarming? They said, practically they don't intend to do any housewarming. So in this sense,
Cut budget.
and probably what they will do is a potluck gathering, which even much more cheaper, where everybody put in their food.
But people who
contribution.
live in bungalows, they should be able to invite you for some meal, right? It shouldn't hurt them at all.
Probably when they felt that after properly calculated to throw a very nice housewarming party at their bungalow will not be cheap, so they discarded the idea. Right?
So besides these industries, the banks are closing branches, Eric.
Yes. And
Because,
we heard that some of the bigger banks are actually closing quite a number of
Yeah,
branches
many branches.
to reduce overheads. And recently we have a chat with some bankers. They said can't help it because some of the banks actually are not performing. And the rental are quite high, so they actually have to cut the
And
branches.
we just mentioned, Eric, that banks are slowing down on their lendings. You see, today we have so much technology. You can actually go to the ATM or the cash deposit machines to do all your transactions. The only transaction you need a bank office or physical premises is when you need to talk to the loan officer or the manager, right?
Yes, and nowadays the loan officer actually goes to your place and visit you. Bring whatever documents for you to sign, which means they don't actually need a branch.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing as our previous episode. We talked about entrepreneurs and enterprise, which they don't actually need an office. Their smartphone and their notebooks,
But
that's not
Eric,
their office.
If the banks don't have branches, how about the staff?
Well, they have to relocate the staff, or they have to go for now they have a new term called the MSS.
Wow.
Those days they had the VSS. Now they have the MSS, which they call the Mutual Separation Scheme, which means
Not mass separation scheme.
not mass separation scheme.
That sounds better.
So it's mutual. You discuss your terms, then the bank throw in their conditions, then mutually you'll go for a separate.
Okay.
So there's
Actually,
new term to
means the same thing.
It means the same thing, but they say the distinct differences is that the VSS, there's a certain period you must go into the VSS scheme. But the MSS, there's no time limit. At any one time you feel that you want to go out, then you have to talk to the bank and see how to
If you
work out.
ask me, Eric, the difference is the spelling.
It's the spelling, and the difference is the resignation and mutual.
Yeah. I mean, VSS means voluntary separation scheme is voluntary. Voluntary and mutual, what's the big difference? Isn't it?
Probably they need to brush up their English.
Well, when you talk about that, I actually have some friends who ask me, what is VSS? They have not heard of the term.
Not surprising, because nowadays everybody is speaking with acronyms. So
too many things to
catch up with, and how to say it?
So guys, VSS means Voluntary Separation Scheme, whereby the boss wants to fire you and give you some compensation.
Some compensation
Is that right?
within a certain time frame, which means that, let's say the bank said that give you a 3 months time frame for you to come into the VSS scheme.
So Eric, all this means that it will result in higher unemployment. The banks, which are big employers, are firing staff or retrenching staff, to use a nicer term. And even our national oil company, the profits have dropped 95% compared to last year.
Yeah.
So you can imagine so many big companies are phasing off staff.
And especially when you see that it's all related to the oil prices. Right. So when the oil prices drops, the revenue drops, everything drops. So
Eric, people don't think so much like last time where people say that you work in a bank, I work in a big firm, you won't be fired. It's very safe and secure. Nowadays it doesn't sound so
secure. Nothing is secure because especially with technology, a lot of companies don't even actually need to hire a physical staff. Right? There are staff all over the world which they hardly see. So they just throw in the assignment to the staff. That's all.
So Eric, I believe some of our listeners are actually having a day job. So let's not frighten everybody too much. Okay. I know a lot of people are entrepreneurs today. So Eric, why not we take a short break and be back with our story?
Yes. Guys, we will take a short break and be back with our story shortly. Stay tuned, guys.
Welcome back. You're listening to Asean Biz, and our Durian main story today is Puppy Woes in Malaysia. But before we continue with the concluding part of our story today, Eric will give us a quick health tip, and his story for today is why warm up?
Thanks, Andrew. Small tips for exercises. A lot of people just skip warming up because they are too anxious to get into the workout or get into the activities.
Yeah, Eric, I believe warm-up is very important before,
especially those who wanted to go into the high-intensity workout.
Yeah, you get injury.
You get injury very easy. And why warm-up is so crucial, okay, even though you don't have much time to work out, you should never skip your warm-up. Right? I mean, warm-up probably takes you 5 to 10 minutes only. This report is according to the American Council of Exercises. Explain that a good warm-up actually boosts your body temperature to help your body burn calories more efficiently, and it helps your muscles contract more forcefully and quickly while improving elasticity, which reduces injury. And it helps deliver oxygen to your muscles more quickly by raising your metabolic rate, improve your muscle control and range of motions, help you enjoy a longer workout by easing the adjusting lactic acid from accumulating in your blood, improves your focus and helps you mentally handle your workout.
Yeah, the problem with warming up is that it's boring. That's why a lot of people, they don't warm up. Straight, they jump into their difficult exercises.
And Andrew, being a ex-gymnast, he actually tells you how important is warm up. Because if a gymnast,
I still remember those days. Yeah, before we do some difficult routines, you really need to warm up the muscles, the joints.
Yes, if you don't warm up your muscles, your joints, as the report says, it will tear your muscle and it cause injuries.
Yeah,
and your joint will be motions, and you actually get tired very fast. This will let you dislike exercises already.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Remember to warm up before you do any serious exercise. But if you're just jogging around, then it's fine, because that jogging is just also warm up.
It's also warm up, especially those who wanted to go into high intensity. As nowadays, everybody is talking about high intensity training.
How about games like badminton or squash? I see people don't actually warm up. Maybe they start off a bit slower.
Even games, you need to warm up as well, because like badminton and squash or golf, you actually lose a lot of joint movement.
Yeah,
and
I think it's
agility.
quite important.
Agility actually cause needed your muscle to change function immediately. And if you're doing badminton, agility movement is so important. If your muscle is not warm up to react to your changes, it will actually cause more injury than good.
Right. So for you badminton fans out there, or even football fans, remember to stretch and warm up a bit before you actually go for it. Okay? Thank you, Eric. That's a great health tip. Let's continue with our durian main story today, that is property woes in Malaysia.
Hi. Welcome back to our second session, listeners. And as we mentioned earlier, the properties woes in Malaysia actually boils down to a lot of incidents. Firstly, and then the following is that the property developers are having a big headache for the past 2 years. This happens because the earlier boom was mainly caused by the DIBS, which highly inflated property prices. Now with bank lending coming down almost to zero, they need to practically think of a new way or new ways to sell the outstanding units and those upcoming units.
Yeah, we have mentioned this before, Eric. So far, what have they done to try to sell their outstanding units?
Well, they're freebies.
Yes. Free this, free that.
Free, mostly they were free the kitchen equipment, aircon.
Besides discount.
Beside the discounts. And, recently I heard of some developers actually giving a free Lamborghini.
Whoa, serious. That must be for some high-end properties,
yes. Right? So, but
hey,
all this coming out
really,
from your pocket.
That's very innovative. Free Lamborghini.
Yes. And upon checking, per unit of their property costs about 10 to 12 million.
Oh, okay. They can afford to give
They can
that
afford to give. If I can sell that kind of property, why not? You know? And some even give you free trips to certain countries. And a lot of things. These are the things that are coming up, and a lot of them actually selling promises. So these are the things that a lot of developers have to come up with. And you can see that those prominent developers actually can make the sales, whereas those smaller developers are having tough time selling their units.
Eric, I'm not too sure how well their sales are coming in, but I can see a very, very serious effort in selling all their outstanding units. Those days in the shopping malls, we see people selling all stuff except properties. But today they sell properties in the shopping malls.
Yes, they sell properties in shopping malls. They sell cars in shopping malls. So you can see that the people are having hard time making a sales.
Yeah, and Eric, those days they only sell properties using off their banners, newspapers and all that. And today we are seeing a very serious effort to sell our properties online.
Online, even offline, they give you a very beautiful buffet for their launching. And we actually see some properties do a relaunch a few times.
Yeah, and they have online launches every now and then. Facebook.
Yes, these are the indications that their properties are actually not moving.
Hey, Eric, you can't say that. Every time they sell something, they'll tell you 50% has been sold, or actually 90% have been sold. Yeah. We have only very limited units left.
Now we are just selling
buy.
off the Bumi units only. We got clearance to sell off the Bumi units. These are the reasons, And they have actually pleaded with Bank Negara Malaysia to allow them to bring back DIBS. And Bank Negara Malaysia has for a short moment promised to look into it. That was quite some time ago.
Yeah, I think we mentioned before, they are trying to look into it because without the DIBS, they actually can't sell.
Yes, what to do?
The reason they could sell earlier was because there was DIBS.
And actually this DIBS doesn't come free, it still comes up from your pocket.
It comes from the pocket of the buyers.
Yeah. And they have even given every discount and incentive imaginable to rope in the sales.
Yeah, we have mentioned free kitchens, free aircons, now free Lamborghinis. What else is free?
Yeah, because the main reason is that the banks have almost stopped lending completely.
And they always beg to differ. They said, no, the banks are always lending. The banks have never stopped lending, just that they are a bit more selective
more
now.
Selective, more choosy. They have to charge higher interest. These are the things that...
But Eric, the feedback we got is that the banks are so selective that they are rejecting 9 out of 10 loans. I don't know whether that is true or not, but that is what a lot of people are saying nowadays.
Yes, and we can actually hear that a lot of purchasers actually have a problem getting their loans. Right? And some even have good profile, also have difficulties to get their
financially
loans.
Strong. That's so much for very selective lending, right?
Yes.
So if they are not lending to very strong customers, then who else are they lending to?
Can you imagine those weaker borrowers? Right.
So now today we have something very interesting. We heard recently that the developers are lending money themselves. Say, you bankers are not lending, so we can't just stand by and fold our hands and wait for the buyers to die like flies one by one, right?
Yes.
So we ourselves are taking up the initiative to lend to the buyers ourselves. So what is going to happen next, Eric?
Well, I think in that case, most developers are not rich enough to lend in the first place.
Yeah.
So the terms are rather rigid. They would have charged an interest rate of 12 to 18%.
Hey, that's quite few times higher than
and
the bank rate.
Terms will be shorter. It will be like 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, you go to the bank, you can get 40 or even up to 50 years.
And however, but they can lend you up to 100%.
This is something more interesting.
More interesting, and in this sense, the developers make money from both ends. And this situation actually we look back into the car industries.
Yeah.
During the mid-80s or the early 80s, this kind of so-called credit firm is also operated by the car dealers. So they sell their cars and they give credit terms.
Something like loan
credit and financing. Those days we have a finance company. Nowadays, because the finance company and credit company merge into the bank, so it's two different.
Talking about 100%, Eric, I don't quite believe it's 100%, no? Some people are telling me the developers will be lending up to 120%.
Why not? It's up to them to name the price.
Yeah, so that the buyers can have some extra cash to renovate the house, right? And maybe to buy some furniture. If you just lend 100%, where got enough?
Where got enough? So they will have they can't move in lavishly.
Yeah, but then, Eric,
they have to move in lavishly.
The banks are only lending up to 80 or 90%. So the banks will not be able to compete with the developers, right?
Well, I think the next thing is,
I hope you're not being sarcastic.
The bank will lend money to the developers.
Because the developers, like you say, they are very rich people, but they are not rich enough to lend to everybody who buy house from them, isn't it?
Yes, because firstly they have to pay for their development.
Yeah, and probably they are borrowing some money from the
banks. They have the bridging loans, they have all the project loans for their projects, and probably they just have to jack up their project value to get a higher loan figures. Then they can at the same time loan it to their purchaser. So in that sense, they make money both ways.
So this is a very interesting development.
Yes,
Eric,
but then this initiative is still in its early stage. We don't know what will happen, whether it will be successful. But right now, everyone is speculating what will happen next.
Yeah, some people are saying that, it's still in the planning stage. But then, Eric, I heard some people telling me that some developers have been doing this for the past half a year already.
Well, probably they're doing it secretly to a certain buyers, that's all. Buyers that they know about, and probably some corporate buyers. When
it was announced just recently, somebody told me, hey, my friend was jumping up and down. How can a developer do that? They're acting like a bank right now, you know? So I was telling my friend and say, look, if somebody sells you an item, you don't talk about property, any item for any amount, say 100,000, and he gives you a credit term of 5 or 10 years to pay for your purchase. Is he doing anything wrong or not?
Yeah, even nowadays you see kitchen cabinets. They give you 24 months terms.
Yeah, today you can buy a car and get 13 years terms. You know, those days, our days, maximum 3 or 5 years to pay for your car
5 years
purchase.
is the max we can.
Right.
You can stretch the car.
So what's wrong with somebody giving you long terms for buying something costing hundreds of thousands or even millions from them, right?
It's, selling motorcycles. Right? You can't get bank loans for motorcycles. So the motorcycles dealers are actually giving the loan.
So
they collect every month.
Nothing wrong, provided they are not charging their customers interest, which is illegal. In Malaysia, I think anything more than 18% is illegal.
So as long as it's not exorbitant interest, they make money both ways. But they still carry the risk of people are not paying them.
So I told my wrong with the developer giving terms for people to pay.
It's my business. I prefer to collect the money slower.
The problem is, I don't believe the developers are so rich that they can afford themselves to let people pay for their purchases over 10, 20 years, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. So probably
they have to pay their contractors.
Probably they have some fundings from other sources. This will be how they work out the JV financial
and we have
package.
to ask ourselves, out of 10 developers, how many would have that kind of funding, right?
Yeah, so we are not into that arena yet. So we are not there to mention anything or pass our comment. We're just reading.
So right now we are actually hearing a lot of people comments, and like Eric said, right now a lot of people are speculating what is going to happen next. So over here, based on the research at Senfis, we are considering a few points. Firstly is that the developers, if they actually lend to the buyers big time, they will need the backing of the banks. And coming to the banks may or may not be accommodative. And their main considerations would be two. Firstly, the banks would definitely want to do business, because if they don't lend to the developers, they would actually want to lend. And the developers will in turn lend to the buyers. And by doing this, they will bypass the household debt to GDP ratio problem. You remember we mentioned earlier, Bank Negara says that our household debt ratio is too high. So now they are not lending to the buyers, so they are not lending to the household sector, but they are lending to the developer, which is under the corporate sector. Different sector.
Okay? So different legislation applies.
So they are not breaking the law. There's a loophole there, But it really sounds ridiculous because lending is still lending,
right? Lending. But one of the setback the banks probably can foresee is that they don't actually host the unit themselves. Should the developer went bust, they have nobody to go through.
They might actually ask the developer to charge.
So there's no foreclosure, there's no such things as liquidations. Probably they will ask the developer to charge those units under the bank.
Definitely, because the banks will always lend based on loans to the developers. Okay,
right.
So the other consideration, Eric, what would happen? What would they be thinking if they want to do something like that?
The bank may not be allowed by Bank Negara Malaysia to do so, because this will create something like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mae. If you guys remember who is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac in the US, which recently happens in 2008 and resulted in the subprime crisis. And in the US property, they call it the subprime. So in case our listener are not aware of the terminology.
Over here in Asia, we call it housing
crisis, right?
Means the same thing.
It's the same thing. Subprime and housing crisis are the same thing.
Actually, subprime is they borrow from the smaller banks or even Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. You know, the big banks, they'll still call it a housing loan.
Okay. The view to a problem of accountability where developers will lend to Tom, Dick and Harry who wants to buy their properties. The banks will lend to the developers based on the financial strength, which should be okay.
Yeah, of course, the developers are strong.
And in the end, if the buyers are not able to pay their installment, the developers have made their money and ran away, and the banks will close up with directors getting fat salaries and shareholders losing all their marbles.
Just like in the US,
That's what we talk about, the economic meltdown.
So these are the things that the central bank will have to consider, the government will consider. So we do not know whether they will close one eye and be influenced by the developers to everybody make money and do business, or they will look into a longer term where people will suffer a lot now and will be better in the long run.
Yes, but actually, if you look at the things, everyone need to buy a property in the first place. This is still a very conventional thinking.
Eric, when you ask me that, it reminds me of Japan, where in the 70s or 80s, the government should own a house and have a roof over their head. It was really a wonderful and noble idea, a very caring government.
Yes, but as time goes by, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years down the line, the situation might not be the same.
Yeah, but the thing is, when the government overextends itself to try to provide for everybody without having that sufficient financial strength, that will cause long-term
suffering, then it causes the property prices to keep on increasing.
Yeah, just like what we see in the subprime, where property prices just keep going up non-stop for many, many years.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, I read an article some time ago. Certain countries in Europe that the government don't actually encourage their citizens to own any houses. Right? They just go there, have a long list, they probably rent the units from the summer house. They just go to that town. They say, I want to stay in this house for 3 months. Then they go there. Then they book the house. Then they go.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So they actually don't need to have their so-called money tied down.
Yeah. They still get a roof over their heads. Right.
Yeah, most important is just a roof over the heads.
As long as they can afford to pay the rental, they're happy. You know.
They're happy, and even though to their dying age, they are not worried about paying housing loan.
Or they might provide for the people in the sense that in Malaysia, they have the PPR scheme where it's flats, which are actually quite neat and tidy, you know. Of course, we cannot compare to with the HDB flats in Singapore,
totally
which are seriously luxury units compared to what we have here.
If you look deeper into the current situation in Malaysia, especially on the property prices, you know, with property prices now escalating, even though we say it's a slowdown, it's still reached up to about 700, 800,000.
Nobody is buying. The price is still high. Okay.
Nobody
until
buying.
It is not high.
Let's say the parents sign up for this particular condo. You know, it takes 30 years to pay. And then the parents pass away halfway through. Can their children continue paying?
They have the MRTA, Eric, which pays off the house immediately upon
if they don't have an MRTA, then the children have to pay it. So in this sense, then the next question is, does the children really want to stay in that area? So they end up having more problems on their hand rather than assets on their hand.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good idea for the government to provide for every citizen a house. But that doesn't mean that every citizen need to have a luxury house, right?
Need to have a luxury house or need to own a house. That's another story.
You know, a flat is not really something that embarrassing, isn't it?
It's not embarrassing. We grow up from flats. We grow up from small areas.
Yeah, but the problem is we like to keep up with the Joneses. For example, the Singaporeans said to say, some of them feel that it's very embarrassing to stay in a flat. And we Malaysians, you know, beautiful flats in Singapore.
Yes,
I also want to stay in one.
Most important is that the compound are well kept, well facilitated,
clean, you know?
It's clean, safe. This is the most important things when people want a roof over their house, roof over their heads, you know. And now, but then whatever's been said and done, now we have to wait and see the decisions and the wisdom of the Malaysian government.
Exactly.
And the central bank to come up with a solution to this. And
so for the man on the street, in the light of all these developments and the global economy slowing down, I think our recommendation, as usual, is to spend carefully at this time when the whole world is slowing down. For people who are working, you got to keep working hard. People having a day job, be more innovative. Don't be so calculative.
More committed to your day job.
Right. Yeah. You know, let the boss feel that you're really worth paying the salary.
Yeah. And stay away from certain books.
They always ask you to quit your job and become an entrepreneur. It's actually a great idea.
It's a great
but
idea.
It's not for everyone.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, and for entrepreneurs out there, be more innovative, look for new markets, improve your products, and keep being competitive, and you'll do fine. You know, look, Hanjin and Deutsche Bank, big corporations in the world, they are bankrupt now, or almost bankrupt. You know, yes. So this looks like the coming of bad things.
These corporations are actually multi-billions company.
Right, yeah, and these are not the only companies that are in trouble. When they are in trouble, it means that their industry is in trouble also.
The related industries or the supporting industry, their supplier will be in trouble.
Yeah, I was told, Eric, all the shipping companies right now are in trouble.
True.
Because
because they have nothing
trade.
To carry.
Yeah, nothing much to ship because slowing down business.
They have a lot of things to ship, but no payment.
Right. And in our previous edition, Deutsche Bank could be the light fuse to blow up the whole planet. Okay.
That is on the financial derivative.
Any confidence.
That's on the financial derivative.
Right, yeah. So the most important, Eric, I believe, is that we should all maintain a positive attitude. Where nowadays we have a lot of blame them because things look quite bad. Okay. And with this good positive attitude, we can all ride this storm over together.
Yeah, you like it or not, the world still goes round, life still goes on, and you still need to live.
As long as we have humans on this planet, we still need to eat food. Food industry will always be good. Oxygen luckily is still free, and sunlight is still free. Other than that, clothing, we still need clothing.
Yeah, so don't buy too much clothing.
Please invest
These
in
are
properties.
the few basic things that we actually require.
Yeah, and if your property is in a good location, you would have no problems renting it out, whatever the economy.
Right. So, Andrew, I think we have come to the end of our show for today.
Right.
And we hope you guys enjoy it. And we will be back with a brand new Durian main story for our next edition on Asean Biz soon.
Thank you and goodbye.